The moment he walked into the showroom, everyone assumed he didn't belong there. Vision Motors was a dealership that prided itself on exclusivity, sleek sports cars, limited edition luxury sedans, and SUVs that cost more than the average person's home. The clientele were typically celebrities, tech moguls, and heirs to generational wealth, not some guy in a worn leather jacket and scuffed boots. Ethan, the dealership's top salesman, barely glanced up from his espresso when the man walked in. He'd developed a sixth sense for high-paying customers, and this guy? Not worth his time. His trained eye flicked from the man's faded jeans to the decade-old sedan parked outside, and his lips curled into a smirk. "This should be interesting," Ethan muttered to a colleague. The man moved with an easy confidence, his fingers lightly brushing against the sleek curves of a deep blue sports car. He lingered there, admiring the vehicle with a reverence that almost seemed personal. Ethan sighed, set his cup down, and made his move. "Good morning, sir," he said smoothly, plastering on his best professional butt-board smile. "Welcome to Vision Motors. Are you, looking for something specific?" The man turned to him, his expression calm but unreadable. "Just browsing. Thought I'd take a look around." Ethan folded his arms, already tired of this interaction. "Of course. Feel free to look, but just so you're aware, most of our vehicles start in the six-figure range." He let that last part hang in the air, waiting for the man to flinch, to back down. But instead, the man simply nodded, as if filing the information away. "Good to know," he said. His eyes scanned the room, then landed on a ruby-red convertible in the center of the showroom. "What's the story on this one?" Ethan hesitated. Most people who asked about the Altera 5.8 Roadster weren't just browsing. That was a serious car for serious buyers. He let out a small, amused breath. "That's the latest Altera model," he said, running a hand along the roof as if it were a prized possession. "Handcrafted leather interior, top-of-the-line performance. It starts at $220,000. He gave the man a knowing look. "We usually require financial pre-approval for serious inquiries." A few employees snickered from behind the desk, catching the subtle dig. But the man's expression didn't change. Instead, he ran a finger lightly along the edge of the hood, as if he were imagining himself behind the wheel. "Beautiful car," he murmured. "Certainly is," Ethan replied, stepping slightly closer to the vehicle, as if guarding it. "But perhaps I can show you something more practical. We've got a great selection of pre-owned models that might be a better fit." For the first time, the man's lips curled into something resembling a smile. It wasn't warm, though, it was sharp, like he was in on some joke no one else had caught. "You don't think I could handle this one?" Ethan let out a light chuckle, dripping with condescension. "It's not about handling, sir. I just like to save people time." The man tilted his head slightly, studying him. "How long have you worked here?" The question threw Ethan off. "Going on 8 years," he said, straightening his tie. "Why?" The man simply shrugged. "Just curious." Something about the way he said it sent a ripple through the room. The few employees who had been pretending not to watch were now fully invested, whispering amongst themselves. Who was this guy? The man stepped back, his hands sliding into his jacket pockets. His gaze swept over the showroom one last time before he muttered, "I think I've seen enough." Ethan frowned, unsure what to make of that. "Well, if you have any other questions," he said, his patience thinning, "I'd be happy to assist, within reason." The man turned toward the exit, but just before he reached the door, he pulled out his phone. Without even glancing back, he said, "Actually, I think I'll make a quick call before I go." His voice was casual, but there was an edge to it. "Who's in charge here?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That would be Adam, our regional director. But he doesn't usually." "Good to know." The man pressed a button and lifted the phone to his ear. "Hey, Adam," he said, stepping outside into the sunlight. "Mind swinging by Vision Motors? There's something I'd like to discuss." Inside, Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. The way the man had said Adam's name, like they were old friends. Like he wasn't some random customer but someone who expected to be listened to. Ethan's jaw tightened. Who was this guy? Ethan tried to shake off the uneasy feeling, but it lingered like a shadow in the back of his mind. He turned back to the showroom, determined to move on. "All right, folks, let's focus," he called out to his colleagues, trying to re-establish control. "Not every random browser is a buyer, and we've got real customers to attend to." A few employees chuckled uneasily, but the tension in the air refused to dissipate. Just then, the glass doors slid open again. This time, the man in the leather jacket wasn't alone. A tall, well-dressed man in his early 50s strode in with purpose, his charcoal gray suit impeccable, his polished shoes clicking against the glossy floor. His presence alone commanded attention. It was Adam, the regional director of Vision Motors. Ethan stiffened. He had only met Adam a handful of times, usually during scheduled visits where the entire staff put on their best performances. To have him show up unannounced meant something serious was about to go down. Adam's gaze swept the showroom before settling on the man in the leather jacket. His expression shifted instantly, from businesslike indifference to something far more surprising, recognition. "Keanu," Adam said, his voice warm but measured. He extended a hand, and the man clasped it with an easy familiarity. Keanu. The name echoed in Ethan's mind, colliding with the pieces of confusion still floating around. Keanu. As in Keanu Reeves? Ethan's stomach dropped. Around the room, employees exchanged stunned glances. Whispers erupted like wildfire. "No way. Wait, the Keanu Reeves? What's he doing here?" Ethan swallowed hard, feeling a sudden, overwhelming heat in his collar. Keanu turned to face him, his expression unreadable. But now, with the weight of who he was hanging in the air, Ethan felt something entirely new, fear. Adam cleared his throat, his business face returning. "Keanu, I didn't realize you'd be visiting today. I would have arranged." "No need for the formalities," Keanu said, waving a hand. His voice was smooth, calm, but carried a quiet authority. "I wanted to see things for myself." He let that statement settle. Ethan felt his hands grow clammy. "See what, exactly?" Keanu let his gaze drift slowly around the showroom, as if taking in the space with fresh eyes. Then, in a voice that was too casual to be anything but deliberate, he asked. "Tell me, Adam, how long has this dealership been part of the Vision Motors family?" Adam straightened. "Going on 10 years now. One of our top-performing locations." Keanu nodded. "And the company values?" Adam hesitated. "Well, we pride ourselves on customer service, exclusivity, and..." Keanu cut him off with a small smile. "Customer service. Interesting." He turned back to Ethan, who suddenly felt like a bug under a magnifying glass. "How long have you worked here?" Keanu asked, though Ethan was pretty sure he already knew the answer. Ethan cleared his throat. 8 years, he muttered. Keanu gave a small nod, then asked the question that made Ethan's stomach twist. "And in those 8 years, do you treat every customer the way you treated me?" Silence. No one dared breathe. Ethan's throat went dry. I didn't mean any disrespect," he stammered, his usual confidence crumbling. "I was just trying to, save you some time." Keanu's eyes never wavered. "By assuming I couldn't afford anything here?" The words hit like a slap. Ethan felt himself shrink. "And no, sir, that's not." "I wasn't the only one," Keanu continued, his voice still eerily calm. That older couple who came in earlier. The woman was excited about a car. But you dismissed them before they even had a chance. Ethan's mouth opened, but no excuses came out. Keanu turned to Adam. Do you have numbers on how many people walk out of here without a second glance because they don't fit a particular image? Adam hesitated, the question clearly making him uncomfortable. We don't track that kind of data. Keanu sighed, shaking his head. Then, to everyone's shock, he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out his phone, and started typing something. Ethan watched, confusion mixing with panic. Was he calling someone? Was he about to report this to corporate? Then, Keanu looked up and said the words that would haunt Ethan for the rest of his career. I think it's time for a change in leadership. Ethan's stomach plummeted. Adam's eyes widened slightly, clearly blindsided. Keanu, are you suggesting? Keanu slipped his phone back into his pocket, his expression cool. Not yet, he said. But I am suggesting that this dealership needs a serious overhaul. Immediately. Murmurs rippled through the staff. Employees who had once laughed alongside Ethan now inched away, as if afraid to be associated with him. Ethan could feel the walls closing in. I can do better, Ethan blurted, desperation creeping into his voice. I just didn't know who you were, sir. Keanu tilted his head slightly. And that's the problem, he said. Because it shouldn't have mattered. Ethan had no response. Adam, looking increasingly uneasy, cleared his throat. Keanu, if you'd like, we can take this conversation to my office. I'm sure we can come up with an action plan. No need. Keanu turned to the gathered employees. We're having a meeting. Right now. Employees straightened, their expressions shifting from shock to anxiety. Ethan could barely stand. This wasn't just a visit anymore. This was an audit. And by the time it was over, everything would change. The glass-walled conference room at Vision Motors had never been this quiet. Employees filed in hesitantly, some whispering among themselves, others exchanging nervous glances. Ethan took a seat near the far end of the long, polished table, his mind racing. His heart pounded so hard he swore it was shaking the chair beneath him. Keanu Reeves stood at the head of the room, his stance relaxed but firm, his hands resting on the back of a leather chair. Adam, the regional director, sat to his left, his expression unreadable. No one knew exactly what was about to happen, but one thing was clear, this wasn't just a meeting, it was a reckoning. Keanu took his time before speaking, letting the weight of the moment settle. Then, in a measured tone, he said, I didn't come here looking for problems. A murmur of unease rippled through the room. I came here because I invested in Vision Motors, Keanu continued. I believed in the company's mission. I wanted to see, firsthand, the kind of experience we're offering people. He glanced around, making eye contact with several employees before his gaze settled, like a hammer, on Ethan. And what I saw was disappointing. Ethan swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the table. Keanu leaned forward slightly. I want you all to think about something. If I had been someone else today, if I had been just another guy in a worn jacket and old boots, what would my experience have been? No one spoke. Would I have been treated with respect? Keanu's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it now. Would anyone have taken me seriously? Or would I have been dismissed before I even had a chance? Taylor, one of the newer salespeople, shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Keanu turned his gaze to her. Taylor, let me ask you something. Do you think we should only focus on customers who look like they belong here? Taylor hesitated, then shook her head. No, sir. Keanu nodded. Then why is that exactly what's happening? Silence. Keanu let out a quiet sigh. I saw how some of you treated me before you knew who I was. I saw how that older couple was ignored. I watched customers, real, potential customers, walk in here excited and leave feeling like they weren't welcome. Ethan's palms were slick with sweat. Keanu turned back to Adam. Tell me something, he said. What's Vision Motors' biggest selling point? Adam sat up straighter. Well, we're known for our exclusivity, our high-end customer service. Keanu cut him off. That's what's supposed to set us apart. But what happens when that service is only offered to people who look like they can afford it? No one answered. Keanu straightened. I'll tell you what happens. You lose business. You lose reputation. And you lose me. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the room. Ethan felt like the floor had just fallen out from under him. Keanu turned his attention directly to him. Ethan. Ethan's stomach twisted into knots. Yes, sir. You've been here 8 years. Keanu's tone was unreadable. That's a long time. Ethan nodded quickly. Yes, sir. I've worked hard, Do you think hard work excuses bad judgment? Ethan froze. No, sir. Keanu tilted his head. Then why did you judge me? Ethan felt his throat tighten. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Keanu didn't let him off the hook. Tell me, Ethan. What made you so sure I wasn't worth your time? Ethan exhaled shakily. I misjudged. I shouldn't have assumed. Keanu studied him for a long moment. No, you shouldn't have. Ethan's mouth went dry. Keanu turned to the rest of the staff. And it's not just Ethan. It's a culture that's been allowed to fester here. A culture of assumptions, of arrogance. A culture that tells customers they need to prove they belong before we treat them with respect. The weight of his words pressed down on everyone in the room. So here's what's going to happen. Keanu's voice was steady, but firm. From this moment forward, Vision Motors is changing. Effective immediately, we're implementing a new customer service policy. Every customer, no matter who they are, no matter what they wear, no matter how they look, will be treated with respect the moment they walk through that door. Adam nodded, already taking notes. Absolutely. I'll oversee the new training personally. Keanu's eyes flicked back to Ethan. And as for you? Ethan's entire body went rigid. Keanu let the moment hang, then said, I'm giving you a choice. Ethan blinked. A choice? You can walk away, Keanu said simply. If you don't believe in what we're trying to do here, if you think this place should only cater to a certain kind of customer, then leave. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Or, Keanu continued, you can prove to me that you can change. That you want to change. Ethan's mind raced. His career, his pride, everything hung in the balance. I want to change, he said quickly. I can change. Keanu studied him for a long moment, as if measuring the weight of his words. Then prove it, he said. Ethan nodded, swallowing back his nerves. I will. Keanu turned to the rest of the staff. That goes for all of you. A hush fell over the room. This is your chance to be better, Keanu said. Not just as employees, but as people. The words lingered, heavy in the air. Then, finally, Keanu pushed back from the table. Meeting over. Chairs scraped against the floor as employees shuffled out, whispering amongst themselves. Ethan remained frozen in his seat, his mind spinning. Keanu didn't move right away. He watched as the employees filed out, then turned to Adam. Let's start fixing this today, he said. Adam nodded firmly. Understood. Keanu's gaze flicked toward Ethan one last time before he finally walked out of the room. Ethan let out a shaky breath. This wasn't just about keeping his job anymore. This was about proving he deserved it. The next morning at Vision Motors felt different. It wasn't just the tension left over from Keanu Reeves' unexpected intervention, it was something deeper. A shift. An unspoken realization that things couldn't stay the same. Ethan barely slept the night before. He had spent hours replaying every moment from the meeting, every word Keanu had said. "You can walk away. Or you can prove to me that you can change." He had chosen to stay. Now, he had to prove it. And today was his first test. The first customer of the day. Ethan stood near the showroom entrance, sipping his coffee, when the glass doors slid open. A man in his late 50s stepped inside, wearing a faded polo shirt and well-worn sneakers. He had salt and pepper hair, tired eyes, and the hesitant posture of someone who wasn't sure he was welcome. A week ago, Ethan wouldn't have given this guy a second glance. He would have assumed, just like he had with Keanu, that this customer wasn't worth his time. But today? Today, he forced himself to see differently. He took a deep breath, set his coffee down, and stepped forward. "Good morning, sir," Ethan said, his voice even and warm. "Welcome to Vision Motors. What can I help you with today?" The man looked slightly taken aback. "Oh, I'm just looking." Ethan smiled. "Great. Looking for anything in particular?" The man hesitated, then glanced toward a row of luxury sedans. "I always liked the look of those." Ethan nodded. "Excellent choice. Would you like to take a closer look? I can walk you through some features." For the first time, the man's posture relaxed. Yeah, that'd be nice." As they walked toward the cars, Ethan caught movement out of the corner of his eye. Across the showroom, Keanu had just arrived, his worn leather jacket slung over one shoulder. He was speaking with Adam, but his gaze drifted toward Ethan, watching. Ethan felt the weight of that gaze but didn't falter. "I got this." For the next 15 minutes, he gave the customer his full attention. He didn't rush. He didn't assume. He listened. By the time they reached the driver's side door, the man was smiling. "You know," he said, rubbing his chin, "I was actually thinking of getting something nice for my retirement. Just wasn't sure if I'd fit in here." Ethan's stomach twisted. Those words hit him harder than he expected. Because a week ago, this man wouldn't have fit in here. Not because of himself, but because of the way Ethan had been running things. "Well," Ethan said, voice steady, "you fit in just fine." The man's smile widened. 10 minutes later, he was signing paperwork for a brand new sedan. Keanu steps in. Ethan barely had time to process his small victory before Keanu walked up behind him. "Nice work," Keanu said casually, watching the customer shake hands with the finance manager. Ethan turned, standing a little straighter. "Thank you, sir." Keanu studied him for a moment, then smirked. "Sir? That's new." Ethan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Well, after yesterday, I figured a little professionalism wouldn't hurt." Keanu chuckled. "Fair enough." Then, with a more serious expression, he added, "That was good work, Ethan. Genuine. How'd it feel?" Ethan thought for a moment. Then, to his own surprise, he smiled. "Honestly? Better than any sale I've made in 8 years." Keanu nodded, seemingly satisfied. "That's what I like to hear." For the first time since this whole mess started, Ethan felt something unexpected. Hope. The test isn't over. The day continued, and the changes kept coming. Taylor, one of the younger employees, followed Ethan's lead, engaging more with customers she might have overlooked before. A single mother came in looking for an affordable SUV, and instead of dismissing her, the staff treated her with care and respect. Even Adam got involved, checking in with customers personally. Keanu, true to his word, stayed the entire day, not just as an investor, but as a participant. He greeted customers. He asked employees how they were doing. At one point, he even sat in a car with a teenage girl and her dad, helping them test out the sound system. The energy in the showroom shifted. People were smiling. Customers were staying longer. For the first time in a long time, Vision Motors felt alive. The final challenge. It was nearly closing time when the last customer of the day walked in. A young man, no older than 25, wearing a wrinkled hoodie and sneakers. He looked completely out of place among the gleaming cars and polished floors. Ethan felt the old instincts creeping in, the urge to judge, to assume, to dismiss. But this time, he fought it. He took a breath, put on a genuine smile, and approached. "Hey there," Ethan said. "Welcome to Vision Motors. What can I do for you today?" The young man blinked, as if surprised to be acknowledged. "Oh. I was just looking around. I love cars, but," he glanced down at his hoodie. "I know I probably don't look like someone who can afford anything here." Ethan felt the words like a gut punch. "That used to be me." He shook his head. "Doesn't matter how you look. You like cars? That's enough for me." The young man hesitated, then gave a small, uncertain smile. "Really? Really?" Ethan said. "Come on. Let me show you something cool." He guided the young man toward a sleek sports car, talking about the design, the horsepower, the craftsmanship. He wasn't selling. He was sharing. Keanu watched from the far side of the showroom, arms crossed, a small smile playing at the edge of his lips. Ethan didn't see him. He was too busy proving himself. Not just to Keanu, but to himself. A week had passed since Keanu Reeves shook the foundation of Vision Motors. And already, the dealership was unrecognizable. It wasn't just the policies that had changed, it was the people. The air was lighter, the tension replaced with something more energetic. Employees actually enjoyed their work. Customers stayed longer, asked more questions, and, most importantly, left happy. Ethan, once the arrogant face of exclusivity, had transformed into something he never imagined, a leader. But his final test was about to arrive. A familiar face returns. That morning, the glass doors slid open, and Ethan recognized the man instantly. The older gentleman from a week ago. The one in the faded polo and sneakers, the first real customer Ethan had treated right. Only this time, he wasn't alone. By his side was a woman in a crisp blazer, holding a leather-bound portfolio. They walked in with purpose, scanning the showroom like inspectors. Ethan stepped forward, forcing down a flicker of uncertainty. "Welcome back, sir," he said with genuine warmth. "Good to see you again." The man smiled. "Good to see you too, Ethan." That's when Adam approached, his eyes widening in recognition. "Mr. Larkins," Adam said quickly, shaking the man's hand. "It's an honor to have you here again." Ethan's stomach twisted. Larkins? The name hit him like a freight train. Russell Larkins, the executive director of an elite private investment firm. A man with the power to buy out half the dealerships in Los Angeles if he wanted to. And last week, Ethan had treated him like any other customer. Ethan's mouth went dry. Had he blown it? Larkins chuckled, as if reading his thoughts. "Relax, son. I didn't come here to test you. I came here to do business." He turned to the woman beside him. "This is my associate, Claire. We've been watching Vision Motors for a while, considering whether to expand our auto investments." Adam straightened, clearly rattled. "Oh. Well, sir, we'd be honored. But we weren't sure if this dealership was worth the investment," Larkins continued. "It had a reputation for being selective." His gaze flickered toward Ethan knowingly. A place where only a certain type of customer was welcomed. Ethan felt his face heat up. But last week, something changed, Larkin said. I came in looking like a regular guy, because, deep down, that's all I really am. He smiled. And for the first time, I felt like a customer. A valued one. Ethan exhaled slowly. You treated me the way every person should be treated, Larkin said. And that told me more about this dealership than any financial report ever could. He turned to Adam. So, if Vision Motors is serious about this new direction, then I'm prepared to invest. Adam's face lit up. That's fantastic news, Mr. Larkins. We'd love to. Larkins held up a hand. On one condition. Adam froze. Anything, sir. Larkins smiled. I want him to handle it. He pointed directly at Ethan. The room went silent. Ethan blinked. Me? You, Larkins confirmed. I want to see what you can do when you're given real responsibility. Ethan's heart pounded. This wasn't just a deal, this was a career-defining moment. He turned to Keanu, searching for an answer. Keanu just smirked. Well, he asked. You wanted a second chance. Here it is. Ethan took a breath. He looked at Larkins, at Adam, at the team that had slowly started to respect him again. Then he nodded. I won't let you down. Larkins grinned. Good. They shook hands, sealing the deal. And just like that, Ethan's career, and Vision Motors, had been reborn. A final conversation. After Larkins left, Ethan found himself outside, leaning against the hood of a sleek black SUV, still processing everything. Keanu walked up beside him, hands tucked into his worn leather jacket. Not bad, Keanu said. A week ago, I wouldn't have trusted you to park my car. Ethan laughed, shaking his head. Yeah. Can't blame you for that. Keanu gave him a sideways glance. You proved me wrong. Ethan exhaled, rubbing his neck. I almost didn't. Keanu nodded slowly. Yeah. But when it mattered, you made the right choice. Ethan looked at him. Why'd you give me a chance, though? After the way I treated you? Keanu smirked. Because I've had people judge me too. Thought I wasn't good enough. Thought I didn't belong. Ethan frowned. But, you're Keanu Reeves. Keanu shrugged. Doesn't matter. People see what they want to see. He crossed his arms. The real question is, when you get a second chance, what do you do with it? Ethan thought about that for a moment. Then he grinned. I guess I show up for work tomorrow. Keanu chuckled. Good answer. With that, he clapped Ethan on the shoulder and walked toward his old, beat-up sedan. As Keanu pulled out of the lot, Ethan watched him go, feeling different. Lighter. For the first time in years, he wasn't just existing in his job. He believed in it. Epilogue, 1 month later. Vision Motors was thriving. Customer satisfaction was at an all-time high. The toxic sales culture was gone. And the dealership, once known for its exclusivity, was now the gold standard in luxury car sales. And Ethan? Ethan was no longer just a top salesman. He was now the new sales director of Vision Motors. As he walked across the showroom one morning, he caught sight of a young man in a hoodie, admiring a luxury car. Ethan smiled. He walked over and extended a hand. Hey there. Welcome to Vision Motors. Let me know if I can help. Because this time, he meant it.